Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Let's talk about burnout. as as a segue goes, that's how we're going to jump right in today. Before we do, I want to mention a couple of resources for you. If you are not in my Facebook group, you should be. If this is a topic that is part of your world and you entrepreneur and mom and business own and teach and partner and collaborate and connect and give and help. And my Facebook group is the place for you. It is the same name as this podcast, Uncomplicating Business, for teachers, helpers, and givers. And you belong with us. Like, we're here for you. And that group is all about being here for you. It's resources and videos and people who get it. And that matters. Community matters. So if you're not in there, come join us. Also, if you are listening to this podcast and you're like, yeah, she gets it, man, please, I would love if you would be willing to rate it on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, or give it a review, or better yet, share it with someone you love, because that is how Apple or whatever platform knows this is useful for you and serves it to other people. So any help in that regard is a good thing, because it's all about reaching as many ears and as many people being helped as possible. That being said, let's talk about burnout. So here's the thing. I've been thinking a lot about this lately because I see it so much in other people, and it is something I have had to really work hard at as a business owner. No one starts their day thinking like, today is the day I'm going to burn out. Yay, me. No one wants this. But at the same time, most people that I know who business owner and teach and mom and parent and partner and do all the things, we skirt the edges of it basically all the time, more often than we'd like to admit. Because not only are we trying to grow a business, but we're trying to grow other humans. We're trying to help. We're trying to serve. We're trying to, get things done in our houses and make sure the house on the outside doesn't look crazy and make sure the dogs are walked and people are fed and all the things. And I think that the world of entrepreneurship, particularly how it is taught to us, like the way it is framed out on the internet, in the books, by the experts on the big podcasts, is framed in such a way that like expects us to burn out, right? That we're expected, to put in 1,000% until we make it, to make every single phone call, to make ourselves do the things that we don't want to do, even when they feel icky, because that's the way it's done. And no. So this week, I want to share with you a process. And for me, it's a couple of years process, but I think it is hackable. I know it's hackable because I've taught some people to do it, clients, one-on-one. We talk about it a little bit in small group coaching. Also, I want to share with you the process of thinking that I think has saved me from burnout, and I've seen it save others. I think that this is probably not going to be what you expect. I know for sure that it is different than most of the advice on like how not to burn out, because all of that advice is given from, being in the system, right? If you're working 50 hours on every, 3 days a week, then maybe work 50 hours 2 days a week. Like, that's not the recipe. You need your brain to turn off. So I want to share this process with you and how to think about it all differently. So for me, for a second, if you can, if you're not driving, just pause and imagine a cake. Yes, we're gonna solve burnout with cake. But I want you to imagine like a wedding cake kind of deal, something with tiers. And I want you to imagine it having 5 tiers, a big one on the bottom, and then each layer getting progressively smaller as you get to the top, right? So this is the cake. And this is the cake that helps us to not get burned out, right? What we are going to do is we are going to think of this cake from the bottom layer to the top. And when we get to the top, layer by layer, we're going to like burnout proof ourselves. And this is the way I think about it. So the bottom step of learning not to burn out, the lovely thing about this cake analogy, before I go too far, is you don't have to have every layer of the cake before you're really in a much better place. Okay. Actually, like the second layer is far enough for most people. It doesn't take long to really tone down the stress and the stress response and the flight or flight and the all the things that have us skirting the edge of burnout. Like when your brain goes 1,000 miles a minute all night long, it's this we can get better. So the bottom layer of the cake, if you want to imagine it, and you can make it whatever flavor you want. I shared this analogy with somebody recently. They made every layer of the cake a different flavor. That's totally cool with me. That's the best kind of cake I can think of. The bottom layer is the starting layer, right? It is learning to try things and not be mean about them, right? It's learning to try, fail, try again. Here's the thing. If we don't have this process where we're allowed to fail, where we try it and we make the best of it and we step out and we start, it becomes very difficult to do anything in business or anything new even, right? Because if we don't have permission to screw it up, then we're expecting perfectionism, and that's not going to happen. We know that. We logically know it, even though we expect it. We want to be perfect, but it's not on the table. It's not in the cards. So step one is learning how to try and do, but also to fail effectively, which sucks. And nobody likes to fail, but it's part of the game. Like none of us is perfect. We are all going to screw it up. I was just sharing the other day in my Facebook group about how, making the mistakes is inevitable. So we might as well just accept that, make them faster and get done with it, right? Like we're wasting time trying to avoid mistakes that we're not going to avoid. You can't avoid them all. That's the first layer. The second layer, it's like, okay, I can try, fail, do again. I can try, fail, do again. I can try, fail, do again. Okay. And I learn as I go. Fine. I'm started. Great. And you're like, cool, check. The second layer up on the cake from the bottom is, this is a tricky one, kindness. And you're like, wait, what? I have to do things and then I have to be kind about it? What? Yes. This is the graceful layer. So here's what the thing is. In this kindness layer, the idea is that we don't need to carry around the guilt, the shoulds, in the first layer on the bottom, you learn to fail. In the second layer, in the layer about kindness, we learn not to be jerks about it. So for me, I think that process took a whole year. And honestly, I don't think it's done yet. But, like 2020, 2021, this is what I was working on. This idea that I could try and do and step out and also be kind to myself, be graceful about it. That when I screwed up, when I made a mistake, when I failed, when something didn't go to plan, I didn't then have to pile on myself. That when I chose to hang out with my kids rather than work, I didn't have to feel bad about it. Or when I chose work instead of hanging out with my kids, I didn't have to feel bad about it. When I chose to give myself a half hour to walk the dogs because I need a break, that I didn't then come back here and make myself work an extra hour because I took a half hour break, right? This is about kindness. And honestly, this is the beginning. Like if you catch this step, this just second idea, burnout becomes much less of an issue, because burnout is really about the pushing plus the guilt, right? People burn out because not only are we pushing, but we're mean about it. Like no one's meaner to us than ourselves, right? We are phenomenally unkind to ourselves. So if you can catch this idea that and practice it, like I spent a year going, okay, what's the kindness I need right now? And literally asking myself, I asked myself in my journal probably 300 times in a year. And then not only asking, but doing the thing, because that's a whole separate conversation. Doing the thing is just that much harder. It's like, what do I actually need right now? Well, what I actually need right now is a break, taking it. What if I actually need right now is to have a 10-minute conversation with somebody who knows nothing about what I'm doing and doesn't give a shit? Then taking it. If what I need right now is to hug my kids, great, go do that. So that's step 2. And now we're going to work up to the third tier, right in the middle of the cake. Once we can learn to try and do and fail, and then we can be nice to ourselves about it. The next step on the path towards no more burnout ever again is trusting yourself. I know you're like, ew, this is the worst. But it's not. It makes sense. It's like, okay, how do I proceed when I trust myself, when I trust my ideas, when I trust my process, when I trust my voice, when I trust my business? What does that look like? Here's the thing. It's very hard to burn out when you're not questioning every decision, when you're like, nope, this is the right thing to do. And sometimes you'll know the right thing to do is take a rest. When you trust that you can't be late for your own life, you can't be late for your own success, that everything is coming on schedule, that the people who need you are finding their way, that you know how to say the thing that they want to hear, that they need to hear, that will help them. When you trust all of that, there's so much less doubt and drama and stuff in your brain that it's very difficult to burn out, right? It becomes a very difficult thing to do because you're like, no, I got this. And generally speaking, if you know you've got this, you then also aren't mean to yourself. You do things and fail and think, okay, that failed. I still got this. And most of the people I know that really trust themselves and their business and their process aren't working 900 hours a week if that's not what they need to be doing. If they feel exhausted, they stop. When you trust yourself and your needs and you're nice about them, when you need a break, you take it. And we don't get burned out if we actually rest, if we're nice to ourselves, if we trust that we're going to get back up. I think this is the hard one for me for trust. People always say to me, well, but I worry if I stop, I won't come back. Like if I start watching Netflix, I'll never turn it off. Here's the thing, you trust yourself. You will come back. You just needed a break. So what? Not a bad thing. So that's 3. The next tier up, tier number 4, this is the one I feel like I'm working on this year. I know for a fact that I'm working on right now. And it is working on joy. So not only can I try and fail and do and fail and step out and start and do the things, not only am I nice to myself about it, not only do I trust that it will work in myself and I know that I'm going to do the things I need to do, but I can let it be joyful. I can let it be fun. I can let it be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I can be delighted by the things happening in my life and business. And I can just be delighted. Like there's no cost to that. I can be delighted and not feel like I have to trade in delight for like drama. Or like, because I feel delighted about what's going on in my business, now I have to go over here and do something that makes me miserable. I can just be delighted all the time. That's crazy, right? It feels crazy to me. I'm still working on it, obviously. But this idea that I can work with joy, I feel like is the absolute opposite of burned out. Like that I can find love and delight and fun inside of my work, even the hard stuff, day in and day out, is like, whoa, that is completely not the way entrepreneurship is built for most people. That's why we burn out, because we lose joy, right? Burnout is the opposite of that. Burnout is no joy at all. And so for me, this idea that like I can be joyfully me in my business feels like the absolute 180-degree opposite of burned out. And then here's the last step, the very top tier of the cake, which I don't think I'm at, but I know is the tier at the top. And I think that is totally possible, is openness, open to receive and serve. So for me, I think this idea is that I am both willing to give help and receive it at all times, that I am happy to ask for help and to be asked for help, that I am open to people's ideas and feedback, that none of what comes at me makes me feel like a bad person. And I don't think that's possible for it to be like, I'm never, ever going to feel that. But I also think it's possible that I can be a much more open and flexible container to receive. And that sounds really interesting, but it sounds nothing like burnout, right? So here's what I think about this cake. I am applying it here to entrepreneurship, but I also think it applies to other areas of our lives, like parenting. Like I think in work, in my business, I am at the stage where I'm working on being joyful. And that's a cool place to be. I've learned to be nice to myself. I've learned to trust myself. I think as a parent of an 11-year-old daughter, I think that I'm at kindness. I think that I am at level 2, maybe even level 1 sometimes. I have not figured out how to completely trust myself. I have not figured out how to be joyful about it most of the time. I am really working on like, how can I be helpful to her and also be nice to me? How can I not be so hard on myself when something I feel like I didn't do it right? How can I not have the guilt? How can I should myself less? So I feel like I'm at a different stage in this as a parent than I am as a business owner. I feel like I'm at a different stage of this as a partner, as a spouse, right? I'm not always in the same place. Like I'm not always completely free of burnout there. I feel like I'm in a different place of that with it as a friend sometimes, right? So we have all these different areas of our lives, but I think this cake applies to all of them. So for you today, I wonder where you are in the cake as a business owner. Like, did you even know these things were things? I wonder where you are in the cake as a partner, as a friend, as a parent, as a volunteer, right? As a leader. You can apply it wherever you like. And then how do you move from one part of the cake to the other? If you know you are in the stage where you've kind of got this kindness thing down, now it's time to move on to trust. Like, then what? How do you want to focus on that? For me as a business owner, I'm focusing on joy this year and what that looks like. I wonder what it looks like for you. I think if we can all add more kindness, more trust, more joy, and more openness to everything, but particularly entrepreneurship, burnout becomes much less of a problem, right? And this might be a years-long pursuit. Certainly is for me. I'm never going to catch this entirely. Never going to be perfect. That's okay, because I'm not trying for perfect. I'm trying for better than average, right? I'm trying to do the thing that works for me, that serves me, that feels good to me, and lets me make impact without the burnout. And I think you can do the same. So if you have questions about this, come talk to me about them. If you have thoughts about it, send them to me on email. I'm sarah@torpycoaching.com, or come to LinkedIn or into my Facebook group and let's talk about it. If you're thinking like, holy crap, this is exactly what I need to work on, great, let's do that. You can book a time to talk about one-on-one coaching on my website. The link to that is in the show notes. And you could also talk to me about group coaching, which is available in the fall. So the next round of group coaching is closed right now because groups are full. But the next round of group coaching will start in October, and we will fill up all the spaces in September. So if that's something interesting to you, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk about it now. If you want to just chat and connect, feel free to reach out. And please, if you want to share this episode with somebody you think that needs to hear it too, I would love if you did that. Thanks so much.